All right, folks, buckle up, because today we're diving headfirst into one of the most, well, let's just say unique manuscripts to hit my desk recently.
I've heard whispers.
It's called Hypersphere,
Oh, yeah.
and it's a wild one.
I can only
We're
imagine.
talking multiple authors, wild shifts in style, and footnotes. Oh man, the footnotes.
I do love a good footnote.
These aren't your grandma's footnotes, let me tell you.
Oh.
They're like arguing with each other, debating the story.
Super meta.
Sounds like a challenge.
It is, which is why we're taking a deep dive chapter by chapter to unpack this beast.
Sounds like fun.
Let's start with chapter 1, shall we? Where we're thrown right into this, cynical reality TV show.
Yes, the disabled performer, Nick Canopy.
Right. Nick Canopy and how the audience reacts to him, it's brutal.
It's cutting satire, for sure. The authors don't hold back.
No, they don't. I mean, one of the lines is, "Wowza, that is inspiring. He looks like the waiter at Cheesecake Factory that served us last weekend, only without limbs."
Right. Makes you think about how desensitized we've become to, spectacle and tragedy.
And then, bam, we're hit with the resurrection of Nietzsche as a pop star, no less.
Talk about a gear shift.
It's jarring, but also kind of brilliant.
Right. Are they commenting on the commodification of everything, even philosophy?
I think they're definitely playing with that idea, how we turn everything into a product, even our deepest thoughts and beliefs.
But then we have the Caitlyn Jenner subplot, which adds another layer of social commentary.
Definitely. The way they portray Caitlyn, or Bruce as he later calls himself, it's like they're exploring the fluidity of identity, how we're constantly evolving in the face of societal expectations.
It's a lot to unpack, and we're just getting started.
And we haven't even touched on the footnotes yet.
Oh, the footnotes. We can't forget about those.
They're like a whole other story happening alongside the main narrative, with all these voices chiming in, disagreeing, debating.
It's like they're inviting us, the readers, into their writing process.
It makes you wonder, are these footnotes representing the internal struggles of the authors themselves? Or maybe even the creative process itself?
Whoa, meta.
Right,
Yeah.
we're witnessing the birth of the story in real time.
Okay, so chapter 2, we meet Tyrell, who, well, he gets killed by the police.
A powerful opening, for sure. And then he wakes up in the hypersphere.
This strange afterlife.
And his story, it takes the social commentary in a whole new direction.
Definitely. His rap verse about being gunned down by racist popo. It's raw. It's unsettling.
It forces you to confront the realities of racial injustice, the systemic oppression that's still so prevalent.
And then there's the formation of the Hyper Niggas, a rap group in the afterlife.
That name, it's definitely pushing boundaries.
Oh, yeah, for sure. They're playing with fire there, using satire to expose racial stereotypes and the power of language.
It's risky, but it makes you think, it makes you uncomfortable, and that's kind of the point, isn't it?
To make us question our assumptions, our biases.
Exactly. And the hypersphere itself, it's not just a backdrop for all this social commentary. It's like its own character, this bizarre, ever-shifting space.
It never seems to be quite what you expect.
One moment, it's vast and awe-inspiring. The next, it's claustrophobic and oppressive.
And then there's Dorothy, this enigmatic figure who appears briefly and then vanishes.
Who is she? And why is her absence so noticeable? The authors leave us hanging.
It's like they're deliberately playing with our expectations, keeping us off balance.
Exactly. And then we have those footnotes.
Always back to the footnote.
They're like this parallel conversation running alongside the main plot with all these different voices arguing about the story, the formatting, everything.
And they keep addressing you, the reader, directly.
It's like they're saying, hey, you're part of this too. You're complicit in the creation of this narrative.
It's a really clever way to engage the reader.
For sure. It makes you feel like you're part of the story, not just a passive observer.
Okay, so Chapter 4, we meet this mysterious man who starts spouting cryptic advice about a place like South Dakota.
And drops a pretty bold political statement about voting for Trump.
Yeah, that caught me off guard. Like, whoa, where did that come from?
It feels intentional, like they're trying to provoke a reaction, make us think about our own political biases.
And then, just when you think you're starting to get a handle on things, they hit you with, wait for it, Rimbaud's poetry.
Both the original French and this bizarre, almost nonsensical translation.
Right. It's jarring, disorienting.
It's like they're deliberately trying to throw us off balance, make us question what we're reading.
And then things take a really strange turn. I mean, stranger than Nietzsche as a pop star. The protagonist gets abducted.
Abducted? By whom?
By skeletons from hyperspace, no less.
Okay, now that's just weird.
Right. And then he's subjected to this, surreal, Kafkaesque interrogation.
It's like they're taking our modern anxieties about surveillance and amplifying them to the extreme.
Definitely. And then we meet this one-antlered deer who's weeping silently.
The deer, I think it's a symbol representing vulnerability, loss, maybe even the protagonist's own sense of incompleteness.
And the deer tells the protagonist to call him Caitlin.
Adding another layer to the whole gender identity theme.
It's a lot to process.
That's an understatement.
And then we're whisked away to this mining colony, which, I don't know, it felt like more than just a change of scenery.
It felt like a metaphor, maybe for the exploitation of labor, the relentless pursuit of resources.
I got that sense, too, like they're commenting on these larger systems that dehumanize people.
It's a dark and unsettling place, for sure.
And then, in Chapter 9, Caitlin decides he wants to be called Bruce again.
Wow, full circle, but with a twist.
It makes you question the whole nature of identity. Like, is it something we can truly choose? Or are we ultimately shaped by our past?
Such a profound question, and the authors don't give us any easy answers.
Which is what makes this book so thought-provoking.
It's not just entertainment, it's a challenge, an invitation to think deeply about ourselves and the world.
And what about the missing Chapter 8? It feels deliberate.
Oh, absolutely. It's like they're saying, hey, we're not playing by the rules. We're going to do whatever we want with this narrative.
It definitely keeps you on your toes.
For sure. And that's just part one, folks.
We've covered a lot of ground, but we've only just scratched the surface of Hypersphere.
There's so much more to unpack, so stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive. So much ground to cover. Yeah, the Hypersphere itself, it's almost like a character.
Right. More than just a setting.
Shaping the whole narrative, the character's experiences.
Totally. Like that scene where the wrapping creates a temporal distortion.
Oh, yeah.
And everything goes white.
Such a vivid description. It really puts you right there with the characters experiencing that disorientation.
Like, whoa, what just happened?
Exactly.
And then, bam, we're in this cyberpunk subchapter. Feels like a whole other book.
It's jarring, that shift in tone and style. But it also showcases the author's versatility, you know?
They can write anything.
Exactly. Genre bending.
Mm.
Keeping us on our toes.
And that portrayal of David Foster Wallace.
Oh, yeah. What about him?
That's like a caricature of the internet-obsessed, edgy persona.
Yeah, totally. And his attempts to seduce Mary Carr, it's both hilarious and disturbing.
It is, right.
Like you're laughing, but also cringing.
Definitely a satirical take on the dark side of online culture.
Anonymity and all that.
Exactly.
Bringing out the worst in people.
Okay, back to the main plot for a sec. The whole abduction by skeletons from hyperspace. I'm still processing that.
I don't blame you. It's a lot to take in. It raises questions about reality, perception.
Right, like what's real, what's not.
Exactly. And the lie detector test. Brilliant touch.
I know, right?
Supposed to be objective truth, but just reinforces the protagonist's belief.
Even though there's no evidence.
Right. Speaks to our desire for simple answers, even when things are messy.
Okay, and then we meet the one-antlered deer, Caitlin, and that whole journey.
Oh, the deer. So symbolic. Vulnerable, lost, searching for something.
The missing antler, maybe representing the protagonist's own incompleteness.
Interesting interpretation. I like that.
And the name Caitlin, of course, connecting back to the gender identity theme.
It all ties together, doesn't it? Layers upon layers.
And then, bam, we're in this mining colony. Harsh, unforgiving.
More than just a change of scenery, though, right?
I felt like there was some social commentary going on there.
I think so, too. Exploitation, the pursuit of resources, dehumanization.
Yeah, and all of that.
The setting is a reflection of larger societal issues.
Powerful stuff.
It is. And then Caitlin decides to go by Bruce again.
Talk about a twist. We're back where we started, but not really.
Right? The journey has changed him, even if he's rejecting the transformation.
Makes you think about identity. Like, can we really choose who we are?
Or are we shaped by forces beyond our control? Past experiences.
Deep stuff.
And that missing chapter 8.
Oh, yeah, I can't forget about that.
The authors, playing with structure, keeping us guessing.
It's like they're in control, reminding us that they can do whatever they want with a narrative.
And they do. It's refreshing, isn't it? This disregard for convention.
It makes you want to go back and reread, looking for clues, connections you might have missed.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of a deep dive like this, you know? It allows us to slow down, savor the text, appreciate the nuances.
It's like a treasure hunt.
Exactly. You never know what you'll discover.
Okay, so we've gone deep, really deep into Hypersphere these past 2 parts.
It's been a wild ride, that's for sure.
As we wrap things up, I'm curious, like, what do you think is the overarching message here? What are these authors trying to tell us?
It's like they're grappling with these huge questions about, our modern world, our culture, our anxieties,
Right.
and they're doing it in this really playful but also unsettling way.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it all. Social satire, absurdist humor, moments of real introspection. It's a lot.
It's a mix, a big mix, but I
Yeah.
think it works. I mean, it keeps you engaged, right?
It does. It definitely does.
I think they're commenting on our obsession with, like, media, with celebrity, with turning everything into a commodity.
Even philosophy.
Right. Like Nietzsche as a pop star. I mean, come on, that's brilliant.
It is. It's so absurd, but it really makes you think about how we reduce complex ideas to these
Yeah.
like bite-sized pieces of entertainment.
Exactly. And then you have the whole Caitlin Bruce storyline, which is like about identity in the age of social
Well,
media.
like who are we in this world that's constantly changing, where everything's so fluid?
And the hypersphere itself, it's not just a setting, it's symbolic, right?
Totally.
It's like this digital landscape we're all navigating, this chaotic space full of information and noise and, well, just weirdness.
And danger too, right? I mean, skeletons abducting people from hyperspace. That's not exactly comforting.
No, not at all. But I think that's part of the point, right? To make us feel uncomfortable, to make us question everything.
And the way they use language, it's so playful, so subversive. It's like they're mirroring how we communicate online.
With all the memes and the irony and the slang that's constantly evolving.
It's like you have to be in the know to really get it.
But even with all the humor and the playfulness, there's this underlying anxiety, this sense that something's not quite right with the world.
Oh, absolutely. It's like this feeling of unease, of being on edge, like anything could happen.
And I think that's intentional. They're tapping into our collective anxiety about, climate change, political upheaval, technology taking over our lives.
It's a lot to process.
It is. And then they
Yeah.
break the fourth wall with those footnotes arguing with each other, addressing the reader directly.
It's like they're saying, hey, you're part of this too. You're not just a passive observer.
Exactly. They're implicating us in the mess, making us complicit.
It's a powerful technique. It really makes you think.
So it's not just a fun experimental book. It's a call to action, a challenge to engage with the world in a more meaningful way.
And that's what makes it so great. It's not giving us easy answers. It's asking the hard questions.
And leaving us to figure things out for ourselves.
So what does hypersphere mean for you, the listener? That's the question we want to leave you with.
It's a reminder that we're all in this together, trying to make sense of this crazy world.
Right.
It's about facing our fears, questioning our assumptions, finding our own path through the chaos.
It's about finding meaning in a world that often feels meaningless.
Exactly. And maybe, just maybe, by embracing the absurdity, the contradictions, the unanswered questions, we can find a new way forward.
A way that's messy, imperfect, but our own.
That's the beauty of it, right? We get to choose.
Well, folks, it's been a wild ride exploring the depths of hypersphere.
Thanks for joining us.
We hope you enjoyed this deep dive. And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those hyper engines firing.